been forever, but without further ado, here are 5 reasons why I loved The Last Thing He Told Me. And this is by Laura Dave. Y'all, there was like dust on my desk and it got into my hair. Gross. Moving on. Number 1, I'm not going to bury the lead here. Hello Sunshine, Reese Witherspoon's production company, optioned this quite a while ago, and it's going to be a movie on Apple TV Plus here very shortly. I just finished Dear Edward on Apple TV Plus and thought they did a really good job of respecting that story because I loved that book, and so I'm really hopeful with Reese Witherspoon and with Apple TV that this one will be a great movie. And it's starring Jennifer Garner. It's going to be amazing. And number 2, I wouldn't say, I guess there's a plot twist, but I guess I just didn't see the story ending the way it ended. I wasn't expecting, I don't want to get too much into it, but I was not expecting the way that it wrapped up. Yeah, that was a great twist. Number 3, as someone who's a teenager when they got a step-parent, I completely relate to the relationship between Hannah and Bailey, and I thought the author did a really great job of writing that and then also developing that relationship as they worked towards a common goal together. Number 4, I'm a Texas girl, and the book is kind of based for a good part of it in Austin, Texas, and I'm very familiar with the city. I don't live there, but I'm very familiar with Austin, so it was really fun for me to read about destinations and places that I've been and that I recognize, so I just found that enjoyable. And number 5, last but not least, the pace of the book was really good for me. As someone who has been in a reading slump for like 6 months, I have been very slow to read. It took me like a month to read my last book. The pace was really good for me. I enjoyed the quicker chapters. I enjoyed that the book was sectioned into 3 parts, and I felt like the story did a good job of pushing me along to like keep reading. So I tried to finish it last night. I had like 70 pages left and I just couldn't do it. I had to go to sleep. So I woke up and immediately started reading it and finished it. So the pace was very enjoyable and I was very much appreciative of it. Laura Dave has 2 other books that I know of right now. The 800 Grapes and The First Husband. Have you read those? And if you have, would you recommend them? I'd love for you to let me know in the comments because I'm definitely looking forward to getting back into reading, and I enjoyed her, so if her other books are good, I'd love to.
So I just finished reading The Last Thing He Told Me by Laura Dave. This is a mystery novel. It follows this guy whose business has just gotten into some shady shit, so he ends up fleeing the state, fleeing his family. So it follows his wife and daughter, who are like a stepdaughter relationship. They're chasing after him. They're trying to find him. They're trying to find out what happened. Why is he running away from us? What's going on? This book was very meh, in my opinion. It started out rough. The writing was very like first drafty. It sounded like every other mystery thriller that I've ever read. It has that kind of plot. And it just like, it wasn't that fast paced or exciting. I wasn't really sure where it was going, and not in a good way. And it took a while to get into. I almost gave up on it. I will say though, it really picked up. The middle like 150 pages of this reminded me a lot of The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. It had that kind of like witty investigative chase, trying to find the truth. The protagonist did a very cool like search, the way they were trying to find the husband, looking through old like documents and stuff like that. It was really well done in the middle. The ending of this book though was also very disappointing, I thought. It's like advertised on here that this book will like grip you right until the final shocking twist or something like that. There was no twist. The last like 30 pages of this book, I also almost gave up reading it. It was just like a confrontation between the protagonist and this guy, like info dumping the family explanation to the mystery, and there was no like gasp worthy moment in there. There was no shocking twist. It was very anticlimactic. Also, without spoiling anything, the final like confrontation that explained everything at the end was like a 25 page long chapter. It was really boring, really like slowly paced, and it mentioned that the guy had a gun on him once, and I think the author was trying to make it like suspenseful and like scary, but nothing came of it. It was never mentioned again. There was no like violence or like threat of that at all, really, other than one mention of a gun and like one mention of 2 security guards. And it was just, I was like, are you trying to make this scary and suspenseful? Because it's not working. Anyways, I kind of just wish I hadn't read this book. It is not worth your time. Don't read it.
Review of The Last Thing He Told Me. It didn't really have me on the edge of my seat or anything, but it was a decent read. It's a 3 out of 5 for me. The flow of how everything was written, I found myself having to reread sentences a lot. Like, they didn't make sense to me the first time for some reason. I don't know. Just the style didn't quite click with me, you know? And then also, it just felt like the writing was really repetitive. Like, for one, the main character just seemed like she was constantly recapping what was going on for you. Just a lot. Too much. And then the other thing was, like, it just seemed like she repeats herself a lot while she's writing. I'm going to give you an example here. How do you grapple with this? How do you begin to grapple with this? You just do. You surrender. You surrender to how you feel, to the unfairness, but you do not despair. I won't let her despair. Just, you know, there's a lot of stuff like that where it's just like the same words over and over. Like, I don't know. I wasn't in love with this book. It's not going to go down as one of my favorites.
First up on Rachel's reviews, we have The Last Thing He Told Me by Laura Dave. So I'm going to have to rate it a 3.8 out of 5. Pretty high for me, I would say. Great plot. Great shock factor. Kept me on the edge of my seat the whole time. I read it in like 2 days, I'm pretty sure. And so only thing is, it's a really easy read. So if you're looking for something to bring to the beach this summer, something real casual, I would definitely
Today's book review is on The Last Thing He Told Me by Laura Dave. The main character, Hannah, receives a note from her husband, Owen, saying protect her, and he is gone in the wind, and he has left behind his daughter from another marriage named Bailey. The book is definitely entertaining as you're following Hannah and Bailey try to figure out what happened to their husband and father. I believe that Hannah is a well-developed main character and it's easy to relate to her. Bailey, however, she's a 16-year-old girl and I felt like there was a lot more potential to expand her personality besides being a bratty teenager. I wasn't in love with the plot, but it does make sense, it creates change, and it does move the story forward. The writing style and the voice was my favorite part of this book. Laura Dave should write everything in first person because she is a natural at that. I'm surprised that coming from a big publishing company that there were a few errors that I found. If this was self-published, it would be easier to let that slide. I'm going to give The Last Thing He Told Me a 4 out of 5 stars, and I liked it.
This past weekend, I plowed through The Last Thing He Told Me by Laura Dave. The thing that just really kept the pages turning for me, quote unquote pages turning for me because I did the audio version, but made me want to keep listening, was just the intrigue and mystery behind Owen's disappearance. I just really wanted to know what was behind all that. So I just could not stop listening. Also, the dynamic between Hannah, the main character, and her 16-year-old stepdaughter, Bailey, really was interesting to me because I also have a 16-year-old stepdaughter, and I just really enjoyed watching their relationship transform throughout the story. So if you have had this book on your TBR, definitely give it a go. I gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars. I mentioned I did the audio version. The narrator did an excellent job, really made the listening experience phenomenal. So there you have it.
Book review time. Ooh, my face is too big. Look, there are still so many books I've been wanting to read already, but I found out that they made this a film and they will air it on April 14, I think, on Apple TV. And the lead character is Jennifer Garner, and I love her. So I don't really have much to say about this book because I did not like it, but I don't hate it either. So I rated it 3. I just do not have any feelings for this book. It's not bad. It's not also that good. I think the film will be much better, which is weird because usually the book is a lot better, right? But I don't know what's wrong with this book. Why? I guess I was just really annoyed with the daughter in the story. And the author kept on repeating the purple hair over and over and over. Yeah, I guess that's why. Or that maybe it's just lacking. Perhaps because it's my first mystery thriller book and I didn't feel any thrill at all. But in fairness, the plot twist is good. I didn't see it coming, so that's why I imagined the film to be good. I didn't really have high expectation in this book because the review isn't that high as well, so overall it's not a waste of time to read this, but yeah, I guess I just have no feelings for this book.
Here's another book review that you didn't ask for. The Last Thing He Told Me by Laura Dave. I wanted to watch it just before the miniseries comes out on Apple, just because I don't like to be surprised. So it follows a family, Hannah Hall, Owen something, and Bailey. Hannah one morning gets a note that is addressed to her, and all it says is protect her. Mysterious, right? The message was from her husband, and later on it's discovered that he disappeared or ran away, and that basically starts off the whole mystery of the novel. In my opinion, it started off really slow, but it did pick up pace during the middle of the book, and it got me really invested. It was really cool. Though you read these types of books and you keep thinking to yourself, okay, it's gonna have a happy ending. It's gonna end like this. It's gonna end like that. But Laura Dave surprised me. Yes, some people know this type of genre, and it's not something new. Like, we've seen these types of stuff before, but it still surprised me the way she ended the novel. It's not a bad way, it's not a good way either, but it did have a lot of family values, which I think she was getting at in the novel. It focused a lot on the relationship between Hannah and Bailey, now that Bailey's father disappeared. So, their relationship was very strained at the beginning, but as they were trying to discover why he disappeared, they kind of got closer, and it was sweet. It ended really sweet. But I won't spoil it, but just this one part. It ends... No, I'm not going to spoil it. I wouldn't really classify it as a thriller, more of a suspense. But it is really good, and I think you should give it a try before you watch the series. Let's hope the series is really good.
I recently read The Last Thing He Told Me by Laura Dave, so let's talk about it. In this book, Hannah's husband goes missing and he leaves her a note to protect his daughter, Bailey, and basically the two of them have to go through his past and secrets trying to figure out why he disappeared, where he went, and what's going on. I've seen a lot of mixed feelings about this book, and I'm gonna be completely honest. I was very shocked to see it won Best Thriller of the Year, especially over The Push. I would definitely label this more of a family drama just because, to be honest, there's not really anything that thrilling that happens throughout this book. And then if something is more towards the family drama side, for me to be invested, I need to be invested in their relationships, which this book really didn't do for me. I didn't really like any of the characters that much. I didn't really care about where the dad had really gone that much or was interested in finding out where he went. I definitely stuck with it because I wanted to know the ending. But it was like, meh, overall. But what do you think?
Bookish news, I want to talk about one that I just finished and really enjoyed. The Last Thing He Told Me by Laura Dave. So I really didn't know what this was about, except that this woman's husband disappears and he leaves her a letter. I'm not giving anything away by saying that. But I had faith in it because I saw some pretty good reviews, and it's also a Reese's book club, and I have faith in Reese. So now it's categorized as a thriller. It was extremely suspenseful. I mean, the writing was so intriguing. I couldn't put it down. I finished it within like 3 days, maybe 2.5. But I definitely felt it was more of like a domestic drama, as, you know, you follow Hannah, the main character, and her stepdaughter, Bailey, as they try and figure out, you know, what happened to Owen, Hannah's husband and Bailey's dad. What I really enjoyed about this book is that the storyline felt very unique. I had never read a story that went in the ways that this one did. And I don't want to give too much away because not knowing made it all the more exciting. But because I had not read a lot of stories that had similar themes such as this one, I really did not know what to expect. And I was constantly guessing, which is so fun. The pacing was also perfect. It was not too long. It was not too short. Everything that was included needed to be included, but there wasn't too much detail. Sometimes I feel like thrillers will do that to try and, put you off a certain idea that you have, but this one was so concise. I don't know, I absolutely loved that writing style. What I'm not so sure about is where the book ended up going. Like, I feel like I had a totally different idea in my head about what was going to happen, and the reveal towards the end, so to speak, like, I'm not really sure if that worked for me. I don't really know. I have to think about it. But I really did enjoy this, and I would recommend it, especially if you're someone that likes fast-paced books. If you have off the next few days and you want to add one more book to, your 2021 reads, this could be the one for you. It was really good. I liked it a lot.
All right, I just finished this book, The Last Thing He Told Me. It wasn't bad. It wasn't great to me. So it's a mystery. Her husband just disappears one day, and she has a stepdaughter, and plot ensues. I don't know why it was part of Reese's book club. I don't know, honestly, I think it was the narration, or not the narration, but who read the audiobook. It was just kind of it's like a drag. Yeah, it's 100% the audiobook. Don't do the audiobook then. It might be way better just the reading with your eyes instead of the ears. So that's my honest review. All in all, I probably would not read it again.
Today's book review is The Last Thing He Told Me by Laura Dave. I gave this book 3 stars. I was deeply underwhelmed by this book, unfortunately. I saw a lot of really good reviews. It was advertised as breakneck pace, really, it just wasn't that to me. I was bored, and I felt like it just kept not moving forward, and then the reveals weren't crazy, and they were too out of the blue. And the ending, you guys, the ending pissed me off so much. The ending, I won't spoil it. It is very deeply unsatisfying. It is deeply cliche. It makes me so angry. So, 3 stars.
I feel like I see this book literally everywhere, and I just finished reading it, so here are my thoughts. This is The Last Thing He Told Me by Laura Dave, and basically the story is that this girl, Hannah, her husband, Owen, goes missing and leaves a note that just says, protect her, meaning protect his daughter, Bailey, who's Hannah's stepdaughter. I'm not giving anything away by saying that. It's literally in the book synopsis. I'm giving this a 3.5/4-ish out of 5 just because I really enjoyed the story, but I just thought the plotline was a little unrealistic, which left me pulling back a bit. But overall, it was really interesting. Hannah and Bailey, her stepdaughter, go on this whole journey to try and find her husband. And honestly, the ending, I still don't know how to feel about it because I feel kind of unsatisfied by it, which makes me lean more towards the 3.5. But overall, I did think it was a good read, and I'm pretty sure it's being turned into a movie. So if you've read this book, tell me what you think about it.
Next up is The Last Thing He Told Me. You see it all the time on television. There's a knock at the front door, and on the other side, someone is waiting to tell you the news that changes everything.
I'm attempting to read through all of my Book of the Month books that I hoard and have not read yet. Let's pick one. Oh my gosh, I don't know how to hold the mic and also do this. Okay, here we go. The mic doesn't sound good when I clip it to myself. I have to hold it, so now I just look like a fool. We'll find a way. Maybe I'll just buy a new mic. Okay, we got The Last Thing He Told Me. This book is pretty popular on Goodreads. Like, a lot of people have read it if you look at like the read count, but I haven't really seen like anyone on BookTok talk about it. So let's see. Okay, I read it. Also, I'm sitting on the floor, so don't mind that. So this is a thriller where we are following Hannah, who mysteriously gets a note from her husband that he is going to be disappearing for a while. We found out that his company has been doing some sketchy stuff, so maybe he's disappearing because of that. And it is now Hannah's job to protect her teenage stepdaughter, who is like not really that excited about hanging out with her stepmom so much. And the whole book kind of becomes this mystery of like, well, who truly is her husband? Was he wrapped up in this issue with the business? Is this something else going on? Is he even who he says that he is? And we're following that all kind of play out. Now, I will say that sounds like a very interesting premise, and I don't know if maybe I'm just burnt out from thrillers, but I was extremely bored reading this. I felt like when we finally did get a reveal and some information on what actually was happening with the husband, I was so sick of the story that I didn't even really care that much. Like, it wasn't a bad... I'm making it sound like it's worse than it was. It's not a bad book, it's just really lackluster. Like, it was fine. If somebody came to me and asked me if they should read this book, I would say, sure, but I can give you a whole lot of better options. Like, it was fine. It was fine. For me, this was just the definition of a 3-star book. It didn't do it for me. Didn't do it for me.
Hey book friends, I just got done reading this audiobook, The Last Thing He Told Me by Laura Dave, I believe. I'll put it right here. It was a very interesting listen. I've been listening to it for about like, I don't know, like 3 days at work, and it really was a good read, had me captivated towards the end. I will say that it is a slow start. So it's following the life of Hannah with her husband Owen, and he has a daughter that's her stepdaughter, um, Bailey. Her name's Bailey. Hannah and Bailey, and they've been left behind by Owen because his company is going through a scandal with some embezzlement and some falsification. So a lot of people are out of money. So he goes on the run and leaves Hannah and Bailey on their own. So the thing is, Hannah and Bailey do not have the best of relationships. Like, Hannah is very understanding. I really liked her character and the way she approached her relationship and being a stepmother to Bailey and not really trying to overstep and making sure Bailey is really seen and heard. I loved their progression and how their relationship grows throughout the story. It's a mystery for sure. There's a lot of things that Owen was not being honest about or truthful about with Hannah or Bailey. I would definitely recommend reading this as a audiobook and not as a physical book if you don't really like slow starts and like slow paces.
I did that so confidently. Anyways, this is book number 7 for me this year. I am going to try to read 5 books this next month because that means that I would get to 12 by the end of the year, which means that theoretically I read a book a month, even though that's not the case. Anyway, The Last Thing He Told Me by Laura Dave was about this woman named Hannah whose husband goes missing after his company is under investigation for securities fraud. So her husband Owen is the head coder at this software company, and basically the CEO of the company was selling the software to investors when it actually wasn't operational yet. So the FBI starts to investigate them, they arrest certain people involved, and Owen goes missing. He leaves behind his daughter Bailey, and Bailey and Hannah don't really get along, have the best relationship because it's like, you know, stepmother to a teen daughter comes in late in her life. Her mother passed away really early on. And so, you know, they're left to learn to trust each other, to figure out what happened to him. And so Hannah kind of takes Bailey on this hunt of hunches that she has. And yeah, they find out that there's a lot of things that he was untruthful about. And yeah. A couple things. Mentally had a hard time picturing the company as a software company because the name of the company is The Shop,
And if you know me at all, you know that my best friend owns a restaurant called The Shop. So it, like, when I kept reading that, I was like, oh, it's a restaurant. It's not. So that was just something that I had to get past mentally. I really liked this book. The last chapter had a really good resolve where it kind of wrapped everything up really well. It was a really easy read. Of course, you know, you make some predictions as you're reading, and what I predicted was not what happened, so it was still nice to be surprised. I liked the way that this author wrote as well. Short sentences are good for me, so lots of short sentences. I think I'm going to try to get this 800 Grapes book next. I think that was her first bestseller. So yeah, sometimes you can't trust Miss Reese Witherspoon and her book club recommendations, but this one was a good one.
I have another book for you. This book is called The Last Thing He Told Me by Laura Dave. Now, I read this book a couple months ago. It's part of Reese Witherspoon's book club. It was recommended to me by a couple of people on Facebook, so I'm going to tell you what I think about it. So first of all, the storyline to this book is this woman winds up marrying this man who apparently turns out to be in like a kind of like a witness protection program, and he just up and disappears when something major happens with his company that he works for. And so her and his daughter, her stepdaughter, spend the majority of the book trying to figure out where he went, is he coming back, what's going on, and they wind up discovering that it's not really him that's in the witness protection. I mean, it is, but it's not. It's mostly for his daughter. I'm not going to tell you why they're in witness protection because that would kind of ruin the book for you, but it does not end the way that I thought that it was going to end, but for me, this one's kind of a 50-50. It was very anticlimactic for me. Like, I mean, it was good. I enjoyed it, like, just to have something to do, something to read. It took me a little while to read it because it just wasn't very exciting, I guess. It wasn't a bad book. It wasn't like all over the place or anything like that. It had a good storyline to it. I just felt like she could have done a little bit more with it. But it was okay. Like, I don't know. Like I said, just very anticlimactic. Felt like it could have been a little bit more exciting. I don't know. I guess it just kind of like fizzled out for me at the end, and I felt like they could have done more with the ending. I also think that this book definitely, it doesn't need a sequel, but I feel like it would benefit from a sequel just so you could kind of like get a follow-up on what happened, especially because of the very, very ending of the book. Something happens that could definitely open up the door for a sequel to it that I think, if done correctly, could be really good. Would I read it again? Probably if I was bored. Would I recommend you read it? Like I said, this is probably a 50-50 for me. It's a good time burner book. So, yeah.
I recently finished reading The Last Thing He Told Me by Laura Dave. It is a Reese's Book Club pick. Doesn't mean it's the best book ever, because I've read some of her picks and I have not been a fan. But I did like this one. I do recommend it if you want a nice... I guess the term for this one was like a mystery thriller suspense, and it does have that. It's just not on the, like, it's not like high key, like way up there. It's not like scary or like murdery, but it's more of about this wife who, her husband disappears and he leaves her with the last thing he told me, a message saying to protect his daughter, which would be the wife's stepdaughter. So it's a really nice story about the wife and the stepdaughter, like about their relationship together, and the husband obviously has lots of secrets that neither of them knew about,
and I kind of saw where the book was going, but at the same time, the ending was unexpected. A very emotional ending if you've read this book. So it kind of does, I would read more by Laura Dave. So if you have any other recommendations by her of which I should check out, let me know.
Okay, well, can you tell I'm like wearing the same thing because I'm kind of just doing these in a row. Anyway, so this is my 2022 book challenge, book number 21. I usually try and read 52 books a year / listen to 52 books a year, and I'm probably not going to reach that this year, but we're on a roll. I listened to this while training for my half marathon, and it was okay. I'm not gonna lie to you, this came up, like, how I've been doing it is I just go on Libby and I look at, like, what books are available, like, what audiobooks are available, and I just kind of, like, scroll until I find one that looks interesting. And I feel like I've seen this cover so often, and when it was available, I was like, sure, why not? Let's read it. Let's see how this takes me through my runs. I would say this book is... It's not bad, but it's not great. Like, I kind of forgot I read it when I was scrolling through Libby again, like, recently, and I, like, stopped on the cover again, and I briefly forgot that I had just read it in November. Like, that's kind of how I feel about it. Like, it's fine. It's forgettable. I don't know. Let me tell you what it's about first. So, it's from the point of view of this woman named Hannah, who is married to this guy named Owen, and she has a stepdaughter who's 16, named Bailey, and Bailey hates her. Like, Bailey is a classic, like, teenager who hates everything. But basically, like, a scandal at the Owens company is opening up. Like, the CEO stole, or I honestly don't know, but he, like, just disappears, and she's like, this is weird. Like, a scandal, yeah, but, like, that shouldn't be why you completely disappear and tell me to just protect your daughter. So she goes on this mission to figure out, like, what the heck happened, and she kind of learns, like, everything Owen told her was a lie. And, like, occasionally you get a few flashbacks to, like, their marriage and how they met and stuff, but I don't know. I feel like it was, like, I liked this story, but I thought it could have been better, if that makes sense. I think it would have been stronger if it was the point of view of Bailey and you had, like, that teenaged vibe to it. But yeah, I guess I just, like, Hannah as a main character wasn't super interesting to me, and then also she's almost like the extra person in this story, and, like, it's really Bailey's story, if we're being honest. And also, like, the love story, like, there's, like, an end scene where you're supposed to just have this, like, moment, and I think if they had done a better job showing the, like, relationship and the passion and the love, that would have felt more heart-wrenching, but it was just kind of, it's okay.
Last Thing He Told Me by Laura Dave was everywhere when it came out, I feel like, and so I was heavily influenced to pick it up, because I was just like, I see this book everywhere. It's about a woman named Hannah, and her husband suddenly disappears one day, and all he does is leave a note that says, protect her, referring to her stepdaughter, Bailey, I believe, and she has no idea what's going on and no idea why he's disappeared, and basically has to go on this journey to figure out all these things that she didn't know about her husband and all the secrets he kept from her. My favorite thing about this book was the way that Hannah and Bailey's relationship developed, because when Hannah's first left with Bailey, like, they do not get along. Bailey does not like her stepmom, so that was interesting to see. And also, it was just interesting to watch these characters, like, figure out what to do, and their life is completely turned upside down by the husband's disappearance. Those were all the mystery thriller suspense books I read last year. If you read any of these, let me know what you thought in the comments and follow along for more book reviews.
I want to talk about this book, The Last Thing He Told Me, because I'm not a big reader, but I'm trying to get into it, and it was a really easy, quick book to, like, get into, right? And during it, I was, like, so invested, and I was trying to get done really quick to figure out what happens, and the ending was so underwhelming. Like, I just was like, that's it. And I'm curious if other people feel the same way. It's turning into a movie. Like, Jennifer Garner, I think, is the narrator. It's hard for me to decide if I recommend the book, because during it was so great, and then I finished it and I was like, what the hell? Like, did you forget to put a chapter? Like, I don't know, the ending was just, I was disappointed.